Very good evening. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. If you're here tonight, I guess something has probably shifted in your working life, maybe recently or maybe over a longer time. I mean, the company you work for potentially isn't the company that you recognised when you first joined, and the goalposts have changed in respect of targets or bonuses, or you're just maybe just doing the maths or what actually it is worth by starting your own brokerage as opposed to getting paid. Whatever brought you here, thanks for joining us. You're in the right place. I'm Alistair Boddy. I lead the broker recruitment at Momentum Broker Solutions. I've had a version of today's conversation probably over 1,000 times over the last 10 years. And I know most of the questions I'm probably going to hear tonight or what you're going to ask. So tonight really isn't about me, clearly. It's about an opportunity to hear the answers directly from a couple of people who are sitting where you probably are sitting right now a long time ago. So look, a quick couple of bits from me before we get into it. On the screen, you should see in a second there, approximately for every 30 people that turn up to this webinar, around 20 show up. I'll be interested to see what happens tonight, particularly with the game of football on this evening. But for those who are here, I really appreciate you joining us. Of those who joined, about 8 of them will probably end up having a proper conversation with us. And about 3 of those will start trading their new brokerage within the next 12 months. I don't say this in any particular way to push you. It's just simply there that if you're watching this, you're already a long way in the thinking that a lot of people aren't when it comes to starting their own business. Very briefly about Momentum, in case you didn't know, we're the only independent AR network in the UK. We've got about 120 broker partners right across UK. Commercial and high net worth insurance is pretty much what we do exclusively. Unlike some of our competitors, we don't do car dealerships from the point of FCA authorization, MGAs and underwriting agencies. We focus on what I like to say is good old-fashioned insurance broking business. So tonight, our brokers join us from both Wales and Orkney, not quite the far stretches of the UK. I'll introduce them shortly. But before we get there, I think it's really important just to name a couple of bits about housekeeping. So a lot of people on this session aren't quite ready to have their name attached to this conversation. I see some names in the conversation there. That's completely fine. But in the bottom right of your screen, there are some initials you'll see right at the bottom there. Mine say AB. If you click on that, you can change your name to something anonymous, such as just your initials, or if you prefer, you can change it to wherever you are in the country. That is if you want to ask questions and obviously join in with the chat. So by all means, just take some time to quickly change that, and then we'll get into things. So first of all, let me introduce to our guests. We'll start further south than north. We've got Chris Harvey from South Wales Insurance Brokers. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. And we've got Adam Stanger, as far north as we actually go, I think, in Orkney. So Orkney Insurance Brokers. Thanks for joining us, Adam.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. So look, we'll start with, if anybody's got any questions, by all means, just chuck them into the chat. But in the meantime, we've got a few prepared questions that we'll get into things. So I'll start with you, Adam, if you don't mind. There's usually a stated reason why someone leaves their employment. And what I would say is a real reason. Putting you on the spot, what was the real one for you?
It was probably a combination, two things. First thing was the broker I worked for, which is kind of a Scottish-wide broker, were acquired by a larger firm, and over the following 6 to 12 months, there just quite a few changes came in, and changes that I really wasn't on board with, or I didn't think helped where I was or where the company was. And the second reason was that latterly I was a manager at that branch, and I didn't really enjoy management as much because you're dealing with all the HR and the people side rather than doing what I felt I was better at, which was insurance broking. So it was probably a combination of the two that made me move.
And as the sort of culture changed for you, Adam, did you sort of start feeling like it maybe just wasn't the right place for you?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's in hindsight, I was probably a little bit naive in the first instance. You know, when any business is acquired, you know, nothing's going to change. Everything's for the better. You know, and I genuinely I believe that, and it probably became apparent for me that I think how I summed it up was corporate structures work in corporate environments. They don't work in non-corporate environments, and Orkney Islands are non-corporate. So I think over a period of time, it was a poorer client proposition, and I thought there was a better way of doing it.
Yeah, brilliant. Look, thanks for that. I think we've just lost Chris. I think hopefully he's joined back on. Can you hear us, Chris? Chris, you got us there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I don't know what the video's dropped there, but if you can hear us okay there. What about you, Chris? What was the situation with yourself? Did you have like a moment where you thought, well, that's the reason why I'm going to have to go and start this myself?
Yeah, it was acquisition. I've been through lots of acquisitions over the years. Some good, but most bad. And the last time it was an acquisition that came from nowhere. Nobody was expecting it, and I just decided there and then that I was gone and I was going to do this. So yeah, it was purely an acquisition for me that I knew wasn't going to go the way I wanted it to and the way the clients wanted it to.
No, fabulous. And was there, dare I say, a moment also where the culture just sort of changed to a point where you thought to yourself, you know what, this just, I don't fit here anymore?
Yeah. So last off for me, I joined what was a relatively small independent because I wanted to be that local broker again, just like it was many years ago. And when the acquisition happened, that rug was quickly pulled from beneath our feet. So I straight away, you know, you're talking about going from independent broking, loads of markets, to having to funnel everything into a select few insurers and relying on lots of favors to get niche things placed. And yeah, it just wasn't for me. It wasn't for me at all.
No, thanks for that, Chris. I mean, clients following you is always a big question for those who start up. And there's a bit of a fear that, you know, or a disbelief that, you know, the clients actually will follow you once covenants expire and you legitimately can reapproach them. At what point did you start to suspect your clients were probably a little bit more loyal to you personally than to the business you work for?
So day 2 for me, my phone started ringing. One of the phone calls I answered was from quite a large client that had found me online. They'd seen I'd moved, seen I'd launched, and they reached out immediately, insisting that they followed me. So yeah, that was the turning point for me, really, where I realised that they are going to follow.
Yeah, and has anything taken you by surprise since you started? I mean, there's been clients who've actually said, no thanks, I'm happy to stay where I am, or has it been pretty favourable?
So one client refused point blank to move, and he's since contacted me and transferred across to me.
What was the turning point for him personally?
I think it was when they saw that what I was building was what I said it was going to be. I think I've gone at this maybe a slightly different way to a lot of people, and I worked really hard to try and build a brand initially. You know, I think when I said to that client, look, come to me, it's all of these good things. You know, you've got to be able to prove it. And when he could actually see that I was doing what I said I was going to do, then yeah, he contacted me straight away and moved straight across.
Yeah, brilliant. And over to you, Adam. Same question for you. When was the moment when you actually realised your clients were a bit more loyal than maybe you thought they were?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably, it's one of these things that happened for me probably a bit more gradually. I think when I started, what gave me the confidence initially was that I thought you realise that clients, even when you were still employed by the previous broker, they would contact you regardless, you know, regardless of what the query was, whether they wanted house contents for their mother or, you know, or a simple claim or a change. You became their one-stop shop. So that in the first instance made me think, okay, maybe this would work. And Orkney being a small place, people, somebody asks you who you insured with, they won't say Aviva, they won't say Orkney Insurance, they'll say Adams Danger. So I think in the first instance, I thought, well, if I'm getting these people constantly contacting me, that gives you enough confidence to think, right, well, I'll just give it a go and see how you get on. And I think probably over time, then it grew steadily when people realised that basically I was doing what I'd kind of always done, and maybe what they weren't getting post acquisition.
And for somebody out there listening today who's particularly concerned about the loyalty of the clients, I mean, if we take your situation, you were in situ through a couple of acquisitions, but basically sitting where you were for 16 years. So you built a relatively loyal client base. What's your thoughts to anybody out there who's sitting there querying whether or not that loyalty sits with them or essentially elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, just have the confidence to do it. Kind of trust your gut. You're obviously, and if you've got a good book and you seem like you've got a loyal client base, then I suppose it's kind of why wouldn't they follow you? I know it's easy for me to sit here now and say that because I've done it, and you're always going to have that fear. But I think if it's working for you, if people are contacting you rather than the company, then why shouldn't it work?
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, well, I didn't really have a large book of business because I'd left the industry for a little while and held a business outside of insurance. And when I decided to do this, as I said earlier, I wanted to build something new, something exciting, and lots of people who are reaching out to me now are not actually ex-clients. They knew clients, and that's really exciting to me. That they see that what we're building here is really something quite powerful, and we can do what we say we're going to do. And yeah, so I'm a little bit different because I didn't have that big book, but the clients I've known for years have followed. Yeah, that goes without saying. They've been ringing me up and they've been following. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And right, here's one that going a bit off piece for you, Chris. But did anyone try and talk you out of it, and who was it?
So the first person that tried to talk me out of it was an ex-colleague who basically said, "Don't be so stupid." But I'm pretty driven. I knew what I wanted to do. I had it all figured out. I think I'd spoken to you the first time round, Alistair, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I ended up doing something slightly different, which wasn't in the insurance industry. But this time I knew exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, and yeah, it's all worked out. But yeah, he really tried to talk me out of it. Said that I was going to waste a load of money and it wouldn't work, and how could I compete with the big boys? But here we are competing with all the big boys.
Brilliant. Adam, what about you? Anyone try and talk you out of it? Anyone suggesting this is the most silliest thing you've ever thought about?
To be honest, probably myself. Nearly, I don't recall anyone talking me out of it. I kept thinking, am I missing something? I kept running through my head and think, and you're making a plan and thinking, will this work? And I kept thinking, and everything in my mind seemed to stack up. But then I would maybe ask people, am I missing something? Is this surely it seemed to make maybe the timing, everything just worked for me in terms of how the local market was here, in terms of how my competitors were operating. It was probably myself nearly talking myself out more than anybody else, and thankfully I didn't. So,
and was there a moment with yourself where you thought, "Don't be stupid"?
Yes, yeah, a couple of times.
What was that?
In terms of don't be stupid for
as in just do it. I mean, you're sitting there doubting yourself, but why not? Yeah,
I mean, sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Was there a point where you talked yourself out of being stupid in regards to, obviously your own fear and own worry?
Probably when it got closer to the crunch, I kind of set a deadline, and it kind of everything was aligning, and it was basically a case of, and probably helped by my wife, it was kind of like, don't be stupid, this will work, just do it. And it kind of finally got through probably a few weeks before I started, and then actually excitement started to build then rather than fear.
This might sound like we're going over a little bit of old ground and questions which we've already sort of asked here, Adam, but most people spend years thinking about starting up. And to be fair, I've known a little bit about your background for a few years before you obviously started up. What was the particular shift in your thought in regards to you making a decision that, this is the moment? Or was it, going back to what you said before, you set a timeline, you're going to do your research, and you're going to make a decision on day X?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, probably the biggest, I would say, probably trigger for me, as much as I was maybe one of these people that would plod along unhappy, but never quite being unhappy enough to finally make the push. And it was probably for me two kind of events. Was first my son being born, which obviously shifts your mindset in life, and thought, well, I have to be happier anyway. And then it was actually coming back from holiday. I'd been away playing in the sporting tournament, and came home after 10 days to my 6-week-old son. And I remember opening my work emails, and there was like 300 emails or something. And I was looking down thinking, there's got to be a better way. and that would have been the biggest trigger for me to think, right, go for it. Probably because a lot of the emails, again, it was like a lack of control as well, probably. And I thought, well, let's get control back and do your own thing.
Fabulous. And Chris, back to you. We had a conversation a good 2 or 3 years before you started. Obviously, you made a decision to go elsewhere and try something a bit different. What was the moment for you where you thought, hang on a second, I'm pretty good at this insurance malarkey. I probably should go back and make a good go at it myself?
Yeah. As I said earlier, I wanted to become that local broker again, because I was a local broker looking after local businesses many years ago, local independent broker, and then through acquisitions ended up with the big nationals, and then when I got a taste of being the local broker again, it was exciting. It's nothing like working for the big boys. It's so much more rewarding, and as soon as I got a taste for that, I thought, yeah, I've got to go for this. I've got to feel this every day for as long as I can.
And the question that's just come in there, which is quite an interesting one, from AH there, is, did you know you could generate the business quick enough to keep you afloat? And that's one probably for you. Start off with you, Chris.
Did I know I could generate the business quick enough to keep me afloat? Well, no. No, I didn't. Who knows? Obviously, restrictive covenants. Who knows what's around the corner? But what I did know was that, I had some money behind me. I thought about it long and hard. I planned. I budgeted. I'd been through my budget 100 times. But I also knew that momentum were behind me as well. So that was a huge weight off my mind, weight off my shoulders, to know that momentum were behind me, and that if the business didn't come in quick enough to keep afloat, they were there to help.
No, brilliant. Adam, over to you. Going back to the question screen there, when did you know you can generate enough business to keep you afloat?
I'm same as Chris. I didn't know. It was it was a hope, really. You thought, trying to put confidence in your own ability. But I had done, like Christina, I'd done some sums. I knew what a break-even number would be throughout the year. But even in the short term, I was prepared to, I had a little bit of savings, but I was prepared to take a mortgage holiday and things like that to just try and keep going if I needed to. Thankfully, that didn't need to happen. But I didn't know. It was a case of just trying to have a number each month that I wanted to hit, that knew you could keep going. And the beauty is as well with, well, certainly in my situation, your costs, my costs were low. I started off working from home, so there's no rent. It was a phone and a laptop, and then it's your monthly commitments in terms of, actuaries fees and things. So it was relatively low cost to begin with, which did make me feel better, because I thought, okay, I don't need to make too much, in inverted commas, to keep going in the first instance.
And look, I mean, I suppose, Adam, staying with you on this question is you have a track record of delivering new business. You've got a network regardless of what your client base looks like. So you must have had a level of confidence about your ability to generate new business. If you look back to the days of being employed, did you pretty much mirror that once you were trading on your own?
Yeah, pretty much. I just, again, Orkney is, we are a bit more unique being an island, and most, you can be quite well known because it's only 20,000 people. So, it can kind of snowball quite quickly where somebody will speak to somebody else on your behalf. And I was quite comfortable picking up the phone to some people saying, look, do you want me to have a look at your insurance for you? And it just kind of grew from there.
There's a couple of questions there from RH around both businesses had their locality in their name. I think I'll just take that one to you, Chris, because I think Adam had no choice but to call himself Orkney Insurance where he was based. So I'll leave that one alone. But Chris, for you, South Wales has been massive for you, hasn't it?
Oh, huge. It's helped in so many ways. It came from years ago, actually, when I worked for a big national and they weren't doing anything to promote us locally. So I came up with an idea to use a local name just to try and generate inquiries. And it got to the point where I'd go to client meetings and they'd say, tell me about South Wales Insurance, rather than the big national I worked for. And I kind of parked there and thought that's going to be really powerful one day. And now it works on so many different levels. So for me, having the name South Wales Insurance Brokers means that people find me easily on the internet. It works really well on social media. It works really well with my branding and marketing, sponsorship of football clubs. It just, people buy into it. So I have no intentions of being the biggest broker in the UK. I just want to be one of the biggest in South Wales.
No, fabulous. Well, look, appreciate that. RH, I think I know who that is, actually, but if it is who I think it is, a long time no see. But second question is obviously around premises. Is that important to project a good image? Now, I'll probably take that one myself if you don't mind. Both Adam and Chris do have premises, but it's typically not the way when a lot of brokers set themselves up. What it is quite typical of is certainly those brokers, and probably I'd say the far reaches of the country, where the community is more entwined, I suppose, with the business community. Would you probably agree, Adam, that that's kind of important to have a physical presence?
Yes. I mean, I initially worked from home briefly. I did then go into a shared office space, but I would class it very much as an office, not a shop. It was a guy that does fire risk assessments and things. It was very much kind of more rough and ready, but it was a place for me to work. But being a small place, people started appearing there sometimes. So then I've moved into a shared office space with an accountant and a lawyer, which is ideal because they both refer business to me. But even more importantly, it's appointment only. To get into the premises, you can't just walk in off the street. So I have the premises and the local presence, but without the walk-ins, which I tend to avoid because I do concentrate mostly on commercial.
Yeah, no, good. Was there something, Chris, you underestimated about how hard it would be when you started up? So there's two questions there. The first thing, did you underestimate something? And is there something you underestimated how good it was?
something that really scared me was the not knowing whether I'd be competitive, whether I'd be able to compete with the big boys. Would Momentum be able to deliver on all the things that Alistair says they could deliver on? I think I definitely underestimated how capable I'd be. Not me personally, but how capable the business would be in terms of being able to go toe to toe with brokers who've been doing this for 25 years, 30 years. Brokers who are, in the top 10 in the world, trading, placing billions GWP. I was able to take business off them. And that blew my mind, to be honest. That was the biggest thing for me, definitely.
Massive confidence boost.
Huge confidence boost. Huge confidence boost.
And Adam, over to you. I mean, I didn't give you the sales pitch, mind you. I had a little role to play with that, didn't I? But
you did.
What was the bit you probably underestimated in regards to how hard it was or how good it would be?
In the first instance, what I found hard was probably the lone working. You're up here by yourself, and I remember the danger, especially firstly working from home, squalid away in the spare bedroom. And I remember my wife saying to me, "Adam, you need to get out more because you so want to be a success in the first few weeks that you've been a busy fool, possibly, and I had to." She's quite good. She's a mental health counsellor, so. That probably helped me as well, as she could talk me through things. So I would say the lone working, and then the pressure as well, of wanting to be a success. But if I'm honest, that's something that I found it comes and goes with me even now. Like I found extra pressure when I took on my first employee. She thought then there was a pressure like, okay, well, I'm not just delivering for myself now, and I'm finding it a little bit again now because I'm just taking on another employee at the end of the month. So, I would have said pressure, it's not really hard, but it is something that's there for me in terms of what I find hard myself just because of who I am at times. In terms of how good it would be, I think the flexibility, like it's not to say you're not going to work less hours, but you get to set your day. You know what you want it to be like and you can execute it how you want it to be because there's nobody else telling you within FCA and compliance, how you're going to do things. And the control element is massive for me. And I remember somebody saying, I'm never going to have to ask for time off to say go to my son's sports day. And it sounds simple, but like just saying, well, I'm going to go do that now might mean you have to catch up at night. But the point is you can choose to do it. For me, that's huge. And without being, I don't know, the financial freedom that it gives with a limited company is definitely a high point as well, because you can, ultimately, you can be far more, you can make less commission, but be better off financially than if you were employed under PAYE. I mean, that's the reality of it. So for me, that's huge.
Well, thanks, Adam. I'll stay with you. You were with your previous employer for 16 years, and if RH is who I think it is, I think he will be able to resonate with that as well. But handing notice in can be quite a daunting thing. I mean, what surprised you most about how your previous employer responded once you did hand it in?
Yeah, I mean, I maybe have a slightly different experience because I actually left the industry for a year. I sat out my covenant. So, but saying that, handing in my notice to the boss was horrible. We had a phenomenally close relationship and friendship. And he was really surprised. I'm not sure how he was so surprised. I think it was possibly one of those where he thought he knew I was unhappy, but I didn't think he thought I would ever leave. So you know, there's no point in getting around it. It was awful, probably for both of us, and as a result, they were okay with me. I was able to negotiate a slightly earlier exit, but he did ask some questions. He knew the job I was going to at the council was temporary, so I think he had a fair idea. And as a result, looking back, there's a few things that happened that it makes more sense to me now that it didn't at the time. And it's a shame because you know, I all my, honestly, small place, my ex employers, a lot of my ex colleagues, you know, I don't really have a relationship with them anymore, and that's a shame, but that can happen.
It is, and and look, sometimes you just got to look after yourself, don't you, Adam? And look, and as they say, look how well you're done. So yeah, well done that. Chris, over to you. Having been employed in a account exec type role for a large chunk of your career, what do you see differently now that you're self-employed that you probably couldn't see when you were employed?
The big thing for me is that, looking back at the, I 23 years working in insurance altogether for me, and I think it's realizing that the people you think are your friends are not. Ultimately, they have jobs to do, they have targets to hit, and everything's about control. Everything. There's always somebody higher up telling them what to do, what they need to achieve. And it filters down to you as an exec, and you have to get the job done. I think doing this now certainly opened my eyes to seeing that a lot of people who I thought were looking out for me definitely weren't. They were looking out for themselves. So yeah, that's it for me.
It's a shame, isn't it? But then again, you know that now, which is brilliant. Adam, any quick comments or thoughts from you on that?
Yeah, I think Chris has summed it up pretty well. I think that the one phrase that I remember thinking to myself was, "It's amazing you realise that some people are colleagues and not friends," and that line was possibly blurred when you're employed altogether. But it's just different, and I think anyone needs to be prepared to probably, I don't know, be disappointed potentially, you know, like with relationships that maybe don't quite go the way that you hope they would. But that's maybe the nature of the beast when it comes to something like this. And so quite often it'll be born out of jealousy potentially, you know, that you're doing something that maybe they wish they had done.
I mean, that's an interesting choice of word, but certainly my understanding from some of the conversations I've had, it's just a lack of understanding or appreciation of the priorities you have in life is another one. I mean, I've heard some fantastic stories about people, you know, on the way out. I mean, there was a broker who joined us last year from a relatively large consolidator who got a LinkedIn message saying, "I don't know why you're doing it, because I don't think you're going to succeed." I mean, I just think, why would people do that? But I think it really does come down to just a complete lack of understanding and appreciation of people's priorities, and probably an element of just not understanding what's within reach if you apply yourself. So, yeah, interesting, sad, but really, really interesting. Question for you, Chris. Before you left, I mean, obviously you've worked for a few large brokerages in your time, but you know, your professional identity typically when you were speaking to clients was the badge above the door. Was it difficult to talk without that badge above the door? Was it difficult to actually trade? And did you have a period of sort of evidencing? I mean, you touched on the client before who, you know, point blank refused to move, but then in due course did move.
Yeah, well, I as I said earlier, I wanted to kind of build my brand. And that's what I focused on initially for the first few months, just building the brand, setting it up, because I wanted it to to look and feel probably more than it was. I suppose I wanted to be now, or I wanted to be then, what he was going to be in 12, 24 months' time. And so, yeah, you know, I built something that customers I thought would buy into, would trust, because I didn't have that book that others had. So I took an office before I'd even launched, and I, you know, spent just a lot of time head down building the brand, because I really felt that it was important. That said, there were a lot of local businesses that did approach me because they just knew me as an insurance broker who lived locally or dealt me in the past. But yeah, I think it's important to do your own thing. And I know I keep saying about building this brand, South Wales Insurance Brokers, but I'm building it to be different. I'm building it not to feel like the big nationals feel. I want it to feel different to them, and people are really buying into that, which makes me feel proud.
And if you think about the industry and the consolidation that's going on, Chris, you both, to be fair, you and Adam have lived right through that from the inside. What does consolidation actually mean in your mind for clients that most of them probably didn't realise? And I'm going to be really, really careful about just toning down any potential answers here, Chris. So, yeah, obviously, no need to be slander and libeling here. But, yeah, what's your sort of thoughts on that?
Well, every time I've been through some consolidation and acquisition, it's almost always resulted in people leaving or moving, offices closing, email addresses changing, loss of markets, loss of access to markets. Every time. It's unavoidable. No matter what they say, it happens. And the last time I knew that it was coming. So, yeah, I decided to do this. And one of the things I wanted to, I kind of set my stall early on by saying that I wanted South Wales Insurance Brokers to be maybe a broker that would acquire other independent brokers in South Wales that maybe wanted an alternative to the big nationals buying them, because I don't want any more of the independent brokers in South Wales to fall into the wrong hands. And you know, we are 11 months in now. We've completed on our first acquisition. Hopefully there'll be some more shortly.
Fabulous. And what about you, Adam? You know, you had a few name changes during your time. Same old thing, time and time again, was it?
Yeah, and I suppose each time you come out a little bit more battered and bruised. You know, as I said earlier, I was probably quite naive, and I believed the hype, for want of a better phrase. But I mean, ultimately for me, I think, again, going back to in a non-corporate environment that I'm in, any consolidator coming in means less competition.
Yeah. And for you,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, carry on.
I was just going to say, and so you set your own brokerage up as an appointed representative. Now, some people say you lack a bit of control being an appointed representative. So, are you jumping from the frying pan into the fire there, or was that far from the truth?
Couldn't be further from the truth, because I mean, again, it's one of these things you hope it works out, you know, as you see fit. But I mean, we have complete autonomy over how we deal with our clients, and to be honest, that would be, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be an AR of Momentum. You know, that for me, that's, you know, it's a bit like in previous employer before they got taken over, they had 8 branches across Scotland, but each branch was given its own autonomy to do as it seen fit in its area. And it's no different now that you know, I get to deal with my clients how I feel they're best suited. And I think probably our Orkney Insurance's retention and growth backs that up. So
and is there anything you've lost since joining or starting your own brokerage that you could benefit from having if you went back to the old world?
my hairline is starting to go backwards.
I think that's an age thing. I can't help you with that one. Sorry.
No, there's.
I have a similar
can't.
issue.
Do you know? And the one thing that I was slightly concerned about when I first started was because I'd done a lot of my own broking, or you had relations, particularly in Scotland, you had a lot of close relationships with underwriters. But with the AR model, you're not dealing day in day out with underwriters. But it's amazing how quick you get used to that, and that it works. It works, if anything, better because it frees you up to do what you need to do. So I don't feel like I've lost anything.
What about you, Chris? Sorry, Chris.
Sorry, it was a little bit scary having the thought of to relinquish, like Adam said, that relationship with underwriters and insurers who you've been dealing with for donkey's years. But I quite quickly came to realise that the relationships Momentum have with insurers and brokers and underwriters were probably a lot bloody better, and you were able to get results that I didn't expect. So yeah, that was a bit scary. Big part of the job for us is selling the client to the insurers, but Momentum is so good at it that I don't miss it at all. And obviously, I don't have to chase insurers, so I save so much time now that I'm able to just focus on my clients.
Brilliant. And Chris, I don't want this to be all about Momentum here. I want it to be around the decision-making process, but you've never ran your own brokerage before. How did you work out who to trust in regards to helping to build your business?
Well, I spent a few months, obviously I'd spoken to you a few years ago, but I spent probably 3, maybe 4 months reaching out to, researching and speaking to all the other networks, everyone I could find. And look, do your research, speak to them. And I think you'll quite quickly come to realise that they're not all what they say. Little things put me off, like not getting back to you. Biggest thing for me, and I say this story all the time. There was a gap of a couple of years between us speaking, myself and Alistair, and he knew exactly who I was. He remembered every detail of our last conversation from 2 years ago, and that said a lot and meant a lot to me. So I've only ever managed
to do that once, Chris.
No, it meant a lot. It did mean a lot, and that is Momentum. That's what Momentum is like. Not just Alistair, the entire team. Really, really good, really good.
Fabulous. Adam, you got anything to add to
that? No, I'd probably just echo what Chris said in terms of Momentum are very good at what they do, in terms of the relationships they have and the buying power and what they can extract from the market is better than what I could do on my own, or even previously. And as I said, we don't have to chase insurers. We free up time, and I have a really good working relationship with Momentum. I can't complain.
Fabulous. So let's talk about life outside of the business. We'll stay with you, Adam. There. People talk a lot about the financial risk of starting a brokerage. We've spent quite a bit of time talking around that fear element, and I want to sort of move on from that. But what changed outside of work once you established the business? How did things change from a family perspective, and what you could afford to do or couldn't afford to do, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first start, you're keeping the purse strings tight, just starting off, but I had more time at home and more quality time at home. My son was small, my wife was still on maternity leave, so I had more time, and maybe money was tighter. But then quite quickly, when you start getting business in the door and the money starts building up a bit more, if anything, you have you have a bit more. You have a bit more of both. You still have the time, but you do have a bit more finances to be able to do things, and you know, yeah, I would have said the work-life balance. You know, it's a lot of people say, "What a better work-life balance," and I definitely have that on the whole. But it's not just a work-life balance; it is, and it is now at a stage where I do have a lot more financial freedom as well, which is great.
Brilliant. And Chris, for you, you know, you're still relatively new, sort of not even 12 months into it, and decided to make an acquisition, which most people think, well, my God, what do you take on that much pressure? But it's still fairly early days for you in regards to the financial equation. But the flip side of that is you know, you've had a few things go on in the last 11 months personally. And how have you managed to manage that whilst basically starting a business from scratch?
Yeah, well, momentum are there with you know, support if you need it. I didn't take any financial support initially. I've decided to use some recently, just because of a few things I want to do with the business. There, you know, a couple of different directions I want to take things in. But yeah, I think being in control, being able to, you know, put your foot on the gas and generate a bit more business when you need to, and the ability as a you know, as a director of a limited company, you don't always have to wait until payday. You can pay yourself a little bit earlier if you need to. It's huge. But yeah, I think I've said a couple of times already that the support from momentum, you know, if you need it, is huge, and it does really help you along the journey.
Adam, back across to you. When did you, second to last question, everyone, in case everyone needs to dash off, we're nearly done, but when did you stop seeing the business simply as a, how do I put it, a way to earn a living, and start seeing it as an asset, and ultimately the financial support you and your family need as and when you get to retirement?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose I've found, you know, I mean, it's a bit like obviously Chris has spent far more time on brand. I mean, I picked the Mortney Insurance because I thought it would, you know, it kind of does what it says in the tin. But I suppose with it growing the way it did, it not just financially, but gave me the confidence to do other things as well. You know, I've just set up another company aptly named Orkney Inspections, which does like Lola inspections for plant, because we don't have anybody in Ireland to do it. So I think once things start to go well, it gives you confidence, not just financially with your family and with that with your brokerage, but also gives you that confidence to be involved in other elements of a business community, and it can kind of benefit it all.
No, brilliant. Right, last question. Stay with you. I'll bring you both back on the screen if that's okay. But there's the majority of the audience, I would expect tonight, is in a position where I suspect they know this is the right option for them, but just can't quite make the move. So we'll start with you, Chris. What's the bit of advice you wish someone would have said to you in that sort of scenario when you're not quite there, and maybe, dare I say it, you just need to be pushed?
Speak to family. That was the final thing for me. Was, I don't know, it kind of felt like I had bad news to break, and I was trying to hide it a bit. You know, look, guys, I'm going to do something here which could potentially be disastrous. But yeah, speaking to family and then getting their backing was really important, and that was the game changer for me. As soon as I knew, you know, they believed in me and my ability to do what I said I was going to do, that was it. It's all guns blazing then.
Yeah. Back to you, Adam. What's your sort of thoughts on that one bit of advice someone had said to you in those early days? You're making the decision.
I suppose there's maybe two things. The first thing is there's never going to be a perfect time. At some point, you're just going to have to take a bit of a leap. The second one is would you rather do it and it not work out, or never know? And for me, the never knowing for me was like, yeah, you're right. I have to do this, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that's better than saying that than never knowing.
Yeah, I mean, someone once said to me, catastrophize, what is the absolute worst that could ever happen? Because ultimately, if you're a decent account exec or client relationship man, then you should be able to pick that up and find another job. So, look, I mean, that's fabulous, gents. I'm very conscious. I've just been told my audio is not the best. Can you both hear me okay, Adam, Chris? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So apologies if anybody has seen or heard that. But look, thank you very much, both of you, for joining us today. I appreciate warts and all. Is there anything either of you probably wish you'd said earlier but didn't cover? No pressure if you have got it all off your chest. Just a simple shake of the head will be fine.
I don't think so.
Just speak to people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Talk to
I said
people.
ultimately, talk to people, speak to your friends, speak to your family. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Trust your gut, I suppose. Trust your gut.
Great advice. So thank you, gents. So what you've heard tonight isn't, as you probably gathered, is live and isn't a highlight reel or dressed up in any way. It's what ultimately it's actually like when you're running your own business. The decision, the doubt, the covenant period, and I suppose what's on the other side. I really, really hope it's been useful to hear it said so plainly by our guest tonight. When you're ready to have that conversation, me or one of the team will be delighted to speak to you and chat things through. We'll look at your situation, your numbers, your timing, and if it's funding that's holding you back, then we're more than happy to talk to you around how we can help with that. So on the screen now, there's a QR code. Alternatively, if you want to hear more from our broker partners who've made the move, the Momentum Meets podcast is the place to go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on our website. Thanks once again for joining us. I hope to speak with you soon.